Hi, hello. I am Ana María Álvarez from Open House Barcelona. We're more than happy to be hosting this hour. So let's get into it. We are today with Farshid Mousavi, an international architect working from London, and with Javier Burón, a housing manager for the Barcelona City Council. We're going to learn about a prop, a new and revolutionary housing model in Barcelona. And then we will tour into an amazing apartment in Montpellier with flexibility as a luxury. After that, we'll meet here again with Javier and Farshid for a quick chat about new housing typologies. We have Farshid in one side and Javier in the other side. I don't know if you want to say hello. And then we go to the first video. Farshid?
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you all.
Javier?
Same for me. Really happy to be with you today.
Nice. Let's see you in a couple of minutes. We are going to see you.
Hello, everybody. It's nice to be able to join you today in this event. The video that you have just shown, it portrays one of our projects. We call it a prop. And the philosophy, it has to do more with the fact that we are right now trying to overproduce for our standards. And at the same time, we are trying to innovate as much as possible, not only in the type of products that we do from the municipality in terms of affordable and social housing, but also in the alliances and in the partners that we are trying to walk along with. This APROP project got recently a new European Bauhaus Prize, and this produced a lot of attention on it, and we like very much this attention, but at the same time we are a little bit managing this dialectic between a very interesting and innovative project and the fact that we are developing a whole agenda in municipal, social, and affordable housing. Right now, as I told you, we are, for our standards, we are overproducing. We are producing 8,000 new rental units using the municipal company. Also working with cooperatives and foundations, and also developing our own type of public-private partnerships here in Barcelona at the metropolitan level. And in all these efforts of constructing new social and affordable rental units, we are trying to innovate as much as possible. In fact, there is, if you take into consideration these 8,000 new units, there is a rather small or modest package of what we call industrialized or to be industrialized as much as possible units, around 500. And the APROP model, which is the building that you have shown, and another one that is very close to be finished, they go up to a bit more than 70 units. So it is a small part or a modest part of the whole effort that we are undertaking in terms of industrialization. And why are we trying to industrialize as much as possible our production? Because we aspire not only to go bigger, but also to develop new tools in order to diversify the type of projects that we are developing, and diversify as well the providers of social and affordable housing. And in order to do so, we need to experiment. We need to prove new things. We need to try to develop as many new paths as we can. Sometimes there is this idea of using the APROP technique or other industrialized techniques, because we have many, allegedly, we have many plots of land resting, waiting to be developed. And this is not really the idea. We are working right now with a bit more than 105 plots of residential land owned by the municipality and intended for social and affordable housing. But the challenge that we are facing right now is how to go faster, bigger, how to be more ecologically efficient, and if possible, how to reduce the cost for the taxpayer of all this public effort. I ask you, or I demand you to conceptualize this APROP successful project and all the industrialized program that we are developing as a way to sophisticate as much as possible the public agenda in terms of affordable and social housing in the southern part of Europe. It has a lot of technical and architectural challenges, but on top of this, we are also facing these dimensions of how we work with our players. And in order to give you some more insight about these new developers, new providers for affordable and social housing, I will let you know that we are engaging with cooperatives and with foundations. They are usually not very active in the sphere of social and affordable rental here in Spain. We are pursuing projects in our land carried out by these cooperatives and these foundations. And funnily enough, our effort to produce industrialization in terms of new types of dwellings has been not only followed, but led by these cooperatives. In some respects, they were being more active and more insightful than we from the municipal housing company. Right now, we are in a parallel moment, but it is very interesting that these cooperatives and foundations, they found industrialization a clear way in order to produce affordability and quality. Because this is the other idea that I want to share with you. The fact that we are working in, let's put it this way, cheap, controlled in terms of cost housing doesn't mean that we don't aspire to liability and to beauty. And we believe that all these things, they can be combined. Sometimes we mistake, but sometimes we succeed. And the other alliance that I want to explain at least a little bit is the fact that we are developing a metropolitan public-private company, which is something quite new here in Spain, and to some extent also in the rest of Europe, because this company is a 50% private equity, 50% public equity, and it works at the metropolitan level. And the challenge is to produce 4,500 new units, all of them for affordable rental. And we know for sure that this endeavor will imply a new development in terms of industrialization, because the fact that private equity and public equity both mingle, both together, we have to develop a type of product that is not intended only for sale, it is for rental, and it has to be rented at affordable prices in a very long period of time. It poses a lot of challenges in terms of how we produce buildings and also how we keep and maintain these buildings in the future. And it is still a working in progress project, but we know for sure that another type of industrialization, it will come up from this company. So nowadays we have the municipal company program in order to industrialize our production of new housing, and the APROP is one of the main relevant projects. We have the cooperatives and the foundations, and the foundation also trying to develop industrialized housing in the sphere of cooperative and affordable housing. And as I told you already, this, for our standards, again, rather big metropolitan PPP company, also facing the challenge of how to introduce new techniques. And let me use my last minute and a half in order to tell you that we are not only producing new buildings, we are also purchasing existing buildings, and we are also mobilizing vacant or underutilized private housing in order to direct all of them to public rental. In these areas, we are also facing interesting challenges in order how to renovate and how to maintain these already existing units in order to be efficient in terms of energy and also manageable for our long-term rental programs. Because with all these efforts, what we are trying to do is to develop new techniques, new alliances for what we believe is the keystone of our efforts, which is permanent affordability. We are looking for buildings that they are affordable today, but they can be affordable in the future. And that has to do with the model of management, but as well with the type of buildings and the type of maintenance that we have to face in the future. And I have been given 10 minutes, and I believe that more or less I I am within that bracket.
Thank you, Javier. We're going now to Farshid. Go ahead when the video is ready. Thank you.
Okay.
I have the presentation already, so you can just get started if you'd like.
So you don't want me to... What's going on?
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation. You can get going. Get started.
Okay, great, thank you.
So I am going to be showing you a housing project or a housing little tower that we were commissioned to design in the south of France. I want to share this with you and highlight the fact that whilst obviously shortage of affordable housing in cities around the world is a huge issue, we also need to focus on the quality of life that we are providing, in these affordable houses or homes. And very often this doesn't become part of the conversation, and even the experience of living there, amongst affordable housing becomes a kind of a subject that we take for granted. So here, it was never a commission for a building that would be repeated. It's a building that was commissioned on a brownfield site on the edge of the city of Montpellier in the south of France. And we used it as a way to question, through the scale and means that we had available, a number of pressing issues that confront 21st century households, and particularly people who would live here in Montpellier. Montpellier enjoys very warm weather. People who live there are probably more interested, let's say, of using outdoor space because of the weather. So one of the issues we took on board to design the building was well-being. How can the building introduce or make available the possibility of living well outdoors? The issue of difference and choice, appropriation. How can residents have the ability to reconfigure their apartment should their circumstances change? And also sustainability. How can we be sensitive to the way we build this building? So we started out with a floor plate that looks like this, and the shape of it is all trying to produce these balconies that are shaded in gray, that produce panoramic views of the exterior, whilst never looking into each other. So there are no dividing walls between the outdoor spaces, and yet nobody's looking at you, and at the same time you have these amazing views. In order to give a number of choices of these kinds of outdoor spaces, we produced 4 typical floor plates, not one. And given the fact that we had to produce 36 apartments, and each floor had about 4 apartments, we needed to use each one of them twice, but in alternating kind of way. And as a result, we achieved this, let's say, stepped silhouette to the building, and 6 different kinds of apartments. Some of them are single height, and they enjoy more shade and more privacy. And some of them are double height, and they enjoy more sun and less privacy. So in a way, the size and the kind of the spatiality of these balconies, and as well as their degree of exposure to the sun and to the neighbors, was one level of, if you like, difference introduced to what would otherwise be the same apartments. we introduced curtains to the single height balconies so that these balconies would become outdoor rooms. The apartments are very small inside. And so to have this extra space that you could use as an extra room was something that we added to the kind of residents who would live in those apartments. You can see on the left here, you know, the same balcony closed and open, and the kind of the way they frame also the exterior and this dialogue that is set up between these outdoor rooms and the city outside. Now, if the balconies would be simply stacked, identical and simply stacked, then you would see your neighbor directly below you. And in order to maximize the privacy of these balconies, and privacy is all to do with making them be more like rooms and an extension of the interior rather than just an outside space that anyone you can look at you and you're clearly outside. So we should kind of keep in mind that privacy is intended for this purpose. So here you see that by having the balcony on the level below slightly to the corner, the view down to the neighbor is minimized, and we then maximize that with the way the design of the balustrades. If you can see to the right bottom, we densify the spacing of the balustrades in the area where we want to maximize privacy. So, you know, we try to use every element of the building that it would be needed anyway. You need balustrades in order to stop people falling down, as a way to improve the quality of life in the building and to give certain kind of specific experiences to living there. As a result of these, the assemblage of specific floor plates and the curtains and the handrails, we arrived to this typical, let's say typical apartments. You see that they're all different shapes, orientations, and their balconies, which are shaded in gray, are unusually large compared to the size of the interior. And by allowing them to be also used as a semi-outdoor or semi-indoor space, we were really increasing substantially the size of you know, usable space for the inhabitants. I mentioned to you the need to think about appropriation and empowering the residents to take ownership of their spaces. This is half of a floor plate, the same floor plate at two different moments. The dark grays are bedrooms and the white is the living areas. And we see how, you know, a single family buys the one on the left, two of them, two apartments next to each other. And very shortly after, they turn all of the one apartment into bedrooms, and they use one apartment only as living room because they decided to live with their daughter. And so they didn't want two apartments, they wanted one. And very shortly after they did this, they put up the whole thing up for sale. So, you know, it's evident, this the case of this family, of how important it is to allow people to add a room, remove a room, because life changes sometimes very quickly. This is another example of two identical apartments that, you know, the inhabitant in one has put the kitchen to one side and in the other one in the center of the space, giving people choices of doing this. Or during the pandemic, Gia, who I was in touch with, and her partner, divided part of their living room to be an office because they were working from home, and they were using the balconies as a kind of exercise space. Over time, I can imagine that maybe the way the partitioning of the building happens, maybe it could also become not orthogonal and perpendicular to the core in the center, but perhaps to the perimeter envelope, something that we would have liked to happen. But at the time, there was a lot of nervousness about the number of angles, etc. And we can discuss this later. And finally, the way to really clad this building, you know, it was going to be curvilinear. the budget that we had was 3.8 million euros for 36 apartments. Price per square meter was half the amount of what was being built in the area. So we had to be, let's say, creative with how we would clad it. And we wanted, of course, to be sensitive to how it would last over time, the kind of maintenance it would require over time, the amount of energy it would require to produce the cladding, etc. So we settled with aluminium. We used off-the-shelf aluminium panels in 3 scales of corrugation. Aluminium does require quite a bit of energy to produce, well, half the amount since the early 90s. It's improving. But what is great about aluminium is that it can be recycled infinitely. And in fact, 75% of all the aluminium that has ever been produced is still in circulation. So we were interested in this aspect of aluminium. It was affordable. We specified it in to be anodized rather than painted, which means that it is maintenance free. And the corrugation is interesting because it allows the building envelope to catch light. You know, the light of Montpellier is a special feature or element of the area, and so to be able to catch it and allow the building to change color throughout the day was also a way to make the building speak to its location. Maybe we can go to the video now. I think it's clear that we designed the building clearly thinking about it as a floor plate and about how to live there, all the issues that I was discussing with you. But I need to mention that the building is called Folies d'Auvergne, and Folies in Montpellier are in the 18th century. They date to the 18th century, where wealthy citizens would build very large mansions as their summer homes. And these summer mansions were very extravagant. And yeah, they were very extravagant, let's say, mostly in kind of image, etc. Now, Folie in the 18th century French and English garden, of course, is a useless structure, and it's intended for pure pleasure. Now, the fact that we obviously the competition which was launched by the city, was calling this Folies d'Auvergne, in a way was a kind of a card or a kind of for us that we wanted to use to bring something extra to an affordable housing building. I think this is how we thought they were. This was our mandate, let's say, by the city, by calling this a folie. And so we see as we walk, around the building, that the building is ultimately not just a place to live; it's also a place to walk around, and it's. I hope it inspires curiosity and a sense of kind of pleasure in looking at the building and thinking that perhaps the floor plates, it's kind of leaf-shaped floor plates, remind us of maybe mushrooms, or it's maybe, when you look up, perhaps it's analogous to coastlines, its profile, or to clouds, or to flowers, or to waves, or perhaps the fact that the undulating cladding, the fact that it's corrugated and it catches the light differently throughout the day. Maybe it's like color zonation or in flowers again, or minerals, or the skin of animals, or maybe the lightness of its balustrades remind us of harps, or maybe the fact that the floor plates from one floor to another are not simply aligned, and they remind us of the game of Jenga. So I think buildings, and why not also affordable housing, should be they are structures there that we move around, and they should also engage us in curiosity, in a sense of pleasure. And I'm very passionate about affordable housing not being doomed to looking cheap. I think we have an interior now. One of the residents has filmed. Yes. So this is the interior of the top floor, in fact. And I think it shows that wherever you are, remembering that the apartments have multi-directional. Because they have balconies, all around. It also means we have great cross ventilation. And this is her living room opening out to the balcony. We will walk back. I should mention that in France, unlike in the UK, the apartments are sold with almost kind of nothing. The kitchen is just a sink, and you get your bathroom fittings, but very, very little by way of a finished kitchen. And I think this is great because it means that the residents can finish it their own. They finish the apartment. You see that, the bedroom opens to a balcony, just like the living room and the bathroom. And this is a quality that these apartments have of an indoor-outdoor continuity.
Well, thank you both for your time or your clear explanations. I think we just experienced like a full story of a building, from urban planning and policies until the completion of an idea by an architect. And with the minutes we have left, I will like to start with just one big question, and then we go for the questions on the chat, and for both of you, and then we go little by little. Are we really, we as human beings or as citizens, are we really ready for an adaptable and then an industrialized home? I don't know if you want to start first, Sheet, or Javier, who wants to start? Are we really ready for that, for an adaptable home, for an industrialized home? Javier? Your phone? No, we don't. We can hear you.
I was saying that, let me be a little bit ironic. I don't know if we are prepared or not. We should be, because there are many things at stake. But I believe that public supply plays a role, because we and try to understand what I want to phrase. In being rigid, we can produce some changes in demand. For example, here in Spain, a few years ago, not that many years ago, affordable housing was for sale, was for ownership. And the fact that some administrations started to change dramatically that policy and saying that the units, they were going to be for rental or for leasehold. And if you like it, that is perfect. But if you don't like it, there are many people waiting in line, change the demand. Many people understood that that major shift was interesting in terms of general interest, and that was going to be applied in the future. So with flexible buildings, industrialized buildings, really buildings oriented to energy efficiency and to livability, we know from a theoretical point of view that they are better for the inhabitants and for the cities. But if someone has to push at the beginning, I believe that the public supply plays that role, among others.
Farshid?
Your question was, are we ready for industrialization? And you said, what was the other one?
Adaptable homes.
Well, I mean, I think
You were playing with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think as architects, all we can do is to provide the possibilities. There is no intention. I personally, I don't think there should be any intention to enforce adaptability. My observation of life, starting from my own, is that things change in unexpected ways, and we need to make sure that people don't have to move unless they want to. And so, a home that allows people to add a bedroom when they need to host an extra, perhaps a tenant, to allow them to help them with extra income at a difficult moment in their life, or to remove the bedroom because they want to work from home and they want a larger bed, living room, is just possibilities that we give to them. Ultimately, if they don't want to change it or they don't need to, that's totally fine.
Yeah, these both buildings are very different from policies until the real form. But I really liked the Jenga game that you say, because I think that a prop is also a Jenga, is some containers that you stack on together, and La Folie Divine is another kind of Jenga where you can just like extract one piece and put it on the other way. And that's what I was going to. These both buildings are adaptable in a structure, in form, and maybe we can add for a prop that industrialized. I have some questions from the chat that I want to move to you. One is for you, Javier. Props are removable. What is the expected reuse of these buildings?
I am again mute, I believe.
No, we're hearing you.
Okay, because
we can hear you.
Because I'm seeing a mute sign. The idea is that we are producing a capacity for emergency, because again, I remind you again that these prop models are used for emergency purposes almost only. We are building a capacity. We don't know yet how big that capacity will be, what will be our complete needs. And we will be able to allocate that capacity in different places along the city. Let's say that in a way, playing with pieces, buildings, that they can be inserted in places where the administration we have land for public facilities. Obviously, it is much more easier to say it than to do it, because even though it's technically feasible, cities, streets, neighborhoods, they have some inelasticity, some rigidities. But theoretically speaking, we will be, with this type of buildings, we will be developing a capacity for emergency housing, and that capacity could be displayed in different patterns across the city in different times and moments. The possibility is there. We will have to see what happens in the future, because it will take time. and probably the context won't be the same in the next decades, and the political leadership and the management of the city can change as well. But the idea is this, that we are not only creating a capacity that stays and remains in one concrete place, but we can play with buildings and location.
Good, thank you. I have a question for you, Farshid. Who are the residents of La Folie Divine? What makes its residential units affordable?
Who are the residents? I am in touch with. I have been in touch with two of them because these days, we benefit from the internet, and usually an architect finishes a building and you don't know the residents, especially if you're not living in that city. So I know that they do different things. As I mentioned to you, I told you that the price per square meter that we had to build this building was half the amount of the average in the area. The building is quite simple. It doesn't have any kind of, it's made out of industrialized material, right? And off-the-shelf materials, except that obviously the floor plates, the formwork of the concrete floors has a special shape. So I would have thought that it would have been let's say accessible to people who would be looking for housing in that area, and comparable to other things on offer. But I can't really give you any specific, except, as I said, the lady who has filmed this is someone that we've been in touch with. She lives on the top floor. Then I showed you another couple who have lived in another floor. I don't know anybody else.
Thank you. Talking about affordability, Javier, how is affordability set? Is it a percentage of an individual's income or indexed to market rate for the area?
For the approx, taking into account that they are emergency housing, and that all the users, they come through the procedures of social services or housing authority, they are paying a bit less than €3 per square meter. The average rent in the city of Barcelona right now is between 14 and 15. And in most of these cases, it takes place something that we call the explicit and the implicit subsidy. Living in these premises by itself is a subsidy because you are living really, really under the market prices. And on top of that, some of these persons or families, they receive help from the social services as well. The social service pay part of the rent. The philosophy is very similar in the rest of our buildings, in the buildings that they belong to the municipal housing company, but we have a spread of different rents and tenants, and also leaseholders, because our aspiration is to have a service that is able to provide for different needs and different social classes, in order to have a social mix within our own premises, in the neighborhoods in where we operate, and ultimately in the city. And they can vary from these 2.5 or 3 euros per square meter that I told you already, to a maximum of 9, which is the maximum ceiling price now set by the regional government. And in the case of leaseholders, they pay 2,300 euros per square meter, where the average price in the city is close to 4,000.
Wow.
So very, very similar to what we have been told from the French.
Yeah.
Example, we operate at least half of the market prices, at least.
I have another question for you, Farshid, from the chat. This is one of several projects that you have made in France. what could the UK and other countries learn from the French approach to housing? Because we already are seeing and watching about Barcelona.
Yes, I think this is a good question. The Folie de Ville was, you could think about it as a public-private kind of project. It's a competition launched by the city, and the kind of participants, if you like, had to be developers who would come with a specific design, if you see what I mean. So the city was selling the land in return for a kind of a financial bid plus a design. So it puts design and the quality of whatever you're going to implement very much on the kind of agenda of why the city would sell it to one private promoter developer and as opposed to other. Now I think this kind of partnerships that happens, I know from my own experience, happens very successfully in France, is something that I think the UK could learn more from, because it's a way to influence the brief and the quality, even the image of what gets built ultimately by the private sector. In Paris or in Nanterre, where we built a larger building with the same kind of setup, the mayor decided literally how many, like we have 3 levels of students accommodation, we have social housing, affordable housing, and only 1 level at the top could be like sold at market value. The rest were price capped. And this was all decided by the mayor, whereas actually a private development company was building and delivering it. And I think this kind of partnership, I believe, works very well.
Yeah. Do you want to add something about that, Javier?
From the total and absolute respect of about what the French and the British model are doing, I would say that we have a lot of we have a deep preoccupation about the future of the land. In our case, we are engaging in all different types of PPPs. We are being as creative as possible, but the land is always public. The land is always municipal. We are not using leaseholds because they are not part of our legal system, but we use the right of surface. Very similar outcome, and we are handing plots of land to partners, to private partners, to people who work with us from 50 to 99 years, and 99 is the maximum. We wish we could do 250 years leaseholds as they happen between the boroughs and private developers in the UK. For us, that is very relevant. The amount of land and building permits that the city like Barcelona can hold, it's limited. So we are not only talking about pieces that produce affordability and social mix and livability today. We are talking about pieces that can decide the future of the city. And the red line, at least in our municipality, is extremely clear. We are not going to sell a single square meter of public land. Other than that, absolutely open to cooperate to whoever is willing to do so.
Okay, thank you very much. I have in a red flag that we run out of time. Thank you, both of you, for your time, for your very clear explanations. Thank you to the Open House Worldwide Network for the organizers. And let's continue with this party. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.